Xavi, Gennaro Gattuso, Stuart Pearce, Wesley Sneijder, John Barnes, and Sol Campbell. No, those are not the names of my Dream Six-a-side team, although that would be one hell of a team, but rather, those are just some of the players, or ex-players, who have come out and said that they think the European Championships is a tougher competition, which is more difficult to win than the FIFA World Cup. And, in fairness, Xavi is someone who should know, having won both tournaments. It seems counterintuitive. The Euros is a battle between Europe's elite. Meanwhile, the World Cup is contested by the best national teams from across the entire world, which, naturally, also includes Europe. How can a tournament without Brazil, who have won the World Cup more times than anyone else, or Uruguay and Argentina, who have each won the World Cup more times than the likes of England, Portugal, and the Netherlands combined, and have won the Copa America more times than Brazil, be considered tougher than one which tends to feature all of those countries, plus the strongest national teams from Europe, North America, Africa, and Asia? It's an argument that I've seen made a lot on social media in recent weeks, unsurprisingly, as the European Championships commences. And sometimes I like to make videos throwing in my 2 pennies for what they are worth on an issue that is being discussed more broadly at any one time. And I think this is an interesting one. For the most part, the argument in favour of the Euros being tougher than the World Cup is a fairly straightforward one. The crux of it tends to be that the World Cup allows a certain number of entrants from weaker confederations, which results in weaker national teams slipping through the net. Meanwhile, stronger national teams miss out by virtue of the stronger competition from their confederation, thus resulting in a suboptimal finals in which the 32 strongest national teams on the planet aren't actually represented. Italy and the Netherlands, for example, failed to qualify for the 2018 World Cup. But most people would agree that even during something of a nadir for both of those national teams, they were still stronger outfits and would have been more competitive at the 2018 World Cup than the likes of Panama or Saudi Arabia from the Asian and North American confederations. The Euros, by contrast, it is posited, does not allow as many minnows to slip through the cracks in qualifying, thus resulting in a stronger all-round competition. There are more easy games, it is claimed, during the group stages of a World Cup than there are during the group stages of the Euros. I think that is probably true. If you take a look back over the years at both competitions, there have certainly been more mismatches in the World Cup than there have been in the Euros. Hungary beat South Korea 9-0 in 1954, Hungary again beat El Salvador 10-1 in 1982, and Yugoslavia beat Zaire 9-0 in 1974. Though, those of you who watched my documentary about Zaire at the 1974 World Cup know that there is a little bit more to that scoreline than initially meets the eye. Meanwhile, no team has ever won by more than a 5-goal margin at the European Championships. When you think of how many games there have been at the Euros, that is pretty surprising. I mean, Germany beat Brazil by a bigger margin than that in a World Cup semi-final. Indeed, no team has even scored more than 6 goals in a single game at the Euros ever. Meanwhile, Hungary scored that many in the space of 26 minutes against El Salvador at the World Cup. This time last year, I made a video taking a look at the 7 worst national teams in the history of the World Cup, which featured teams who averaged no goals scored and 8 goals conceded per game at the finals. You just don't get those kinds of records at the European Championships, and a similar video covering the worst teams at the Euros would be far more mundane. I do think that gap has narrowed in recent years, as the strength of teams outside of Europe and South America has improved, but it does still hold broadly true. The lowest ranked teams at Euro 2020, such as Finland and North Macedonia, are still superior teams, I believe, to the lowest ranked teams at the 2018 World Cup, such as Panama and Saudi Arabia. So I think we can accept that claim to be true for now. That claim would hold much more weight prior to 2016 though, when the Euros was a truly elite level competition comprising of just 16 teams. But the expansion to 24 teams has naturally decreased the all-round quality of the teams present and of the competition. I think that change, along with the change of format that came with it, has significantly weakened the claim that the European Championships is a tougher tournament to win than the World Cup. and it is the primary reason why I don't believe that is the case. The argument in favour of the Euros being more challenging tends to revolve around the idea that the lack of genuine whipping boys at any stage in the competition means that the tournament is more physically demanding and psychologically tasking, due to the fact that you have to hit the ground running and you can't afford to let your standards drop across 7 grueling games in less than a month en route to lifting the trophy. Again, I think that probably was true prior to 2016, when only 2 teams progressed from each of the 4 groups, progressing directly to the quarter-final stage. Just look at the quality of team present and the quality of team eliminated during the group stage at Euro 2012. The Republic of Ireland were probably the only team that wasn't really capable of competing, and even they were still far stronger then, in 2012, than they are now. There were very few thrashings or wide margins of victory, only really Spain's 4-0 win against Ireland and Russia's 4-1 win against the Czech Republic. What's more, that Russia versus Czech Republic game is testament to why a proper group stage makes everything more interesting and the demands so much more intense. Russia beat the Czech Republic 4-1 in both teams' opening games, yet the Czech Republic went on to win that group and progress, meanwhile Russia finished third, on a head-to-head basis versus Greece, and was sent packing. Compare and contrast Euro 2012 and a lot of pre-expansion Euros with the World Cup, and it is light and day. There has never been a World Cup which hasn't had a far worse team than Ireland in 2012, and a far worse second worst team than the Netherlands, so if I were making this video in 2012, I would be very tempted to agree with those who say that the Euros is tougher than the World Cup. So, across 7 games that it takes to win either the World Cup or the Euros, it may be true that the median or overall quality of opposition that you face at the Euros is slightly higher, but in the latter stages, most years, when the likes of Brazil, Argentina, and Uruguay are really competitive, the World Cup should always be harder to win. Because to reach that stage, the non-European nations would have to have overcome European nations to progress. That is to say, the slightly weaker group stage is outweighed by the depth of talent and quality at a World Cup during the knockout stage, at least at the vast majority of tournaments. What's more, any weaknesses that still exist in the World Cup group stage, compared to at the Euros, are surely also outweighed by the fact that 4 out of the 6 third-place sides during the group stage at the Euros now progress to the knockout stage. Of the 24 group stage teams at Euro 2020, 16 teams will reach the knockout stage, and only 8 teams will actually be knocked out. That rather undermines the claim that you have to be firing on all cylinders and 100% at it in every game at the Euros, since plenty of teams will already have qualified for the knockout stage with a game to spare in the group stage, meaning they could, theoretically, rotate their squad and rest their strongest 11 if they liked. I also think that we tend to have short memories in football, as well as a hefty dose of Eurocentrism among many football fans in Europe. We think of the 2018 World Cup, where no non-European national teams progressed beyond the quarter-final stage, and we think that proves that European football reigns supreme. And right now, that may well be true. But this is just a single snapshot and moment in time. That certainly has not historically been the status quo, and it is unlikely that it will remain the case for many years to come. At the 2014 World Cup, which is hardly ancient history, half of the quarter-finalists, half of the semi-finalists, and indeed half of the finalists were not European, as Argentina dumped out Belgium and the Netherlands. Meanwhile, the United States progressed from Group G at the expense of Portugal, who won the Euros just 2 years later. It would be fair to say that Portugal did not find the World Cup to be an easier ride than the Euros. Oh, and as much as I would like to forget it, England and Italy were both knocked out of a group which was topped by Costa Rica, with Uruguay finishing as runners-up. So, I would urge for a sense of perspective and for some humility before Europeans go rating off the rest of the world during their period of dominance, since it could all change again very quickly in Qatar in just 18 months' time. So, to conclude, it still holds true that the worst team at the World Cup tends to be worse than the worst team at the Euros, but not by much. And any advantage that may give you at the World Cup is cancelled out by the fact that 3, rather than 2 teams, progress from 4 out of the 6 groups at the Euros, and also by the added quality at a World Cup in the latter stages. I also wonder whether the World Cup, which is still seen as the pinnacle of the world game and as the biggest trophy in world football, therefore carries with it even more pressure than the Euros. But I think that is a little bit subjective, and I suspect anyone who has played in both competitions would tell you that the pressure of taking a penalty in a shootout is just as intense at the Euros as it is at the World Cup. Anyhow, as I said, I just wanted to share my views on the issue since I have seen a fair few people tweet about it. Am I right? Am I wrong? Let me know in the comments. The answer is that I'm right, of course, but, just let me know your thoughts nonetheless. Thank you all as ever for watching. A short video from me these days, but I hope you enjoyed it. If that was the case, please do smash the like button. As I say, let me know your thoughts down below in the comments, and make sure that you are subscribed and have notifications turned on for HITC Sevens. You can also find me on social media, of course, on either Twitter or Instagram by the username @HITC Sevens on both, should you wish to do so.